Okay.
I do worry sometimes.
Okay, welcome back. Welcome back, everybody.
Pearls aren't being taken in.
We're on. Yeah. We're now back to. We're now on to item 14, which is the rubbish and recycling contract and working group. And you'll recall this was discussed at the last finance meeting and brought back today. So, Chris, welcome back.
Yep.
Before we start the discussion, just as indicators, I have interest from Councillor Gallagher and Councillor Forsyth to be the elected members, participate in the waste working group. Please fire ahead with your presentation.
Yep, I am going to take the report largely as read because we did a lot of the discussions last time and Council approved in principle, I think, the extension of the contracts in the notion. The matter of discussion last time was having visibility on the terms of reference in the timetable. So look, that's on page 142 and 143. So we are proposing a working group consisting of 2 elected members, some staff, and there's likely to be myself and someone like Andrew Parsons, an independent expert. We would look to pick that with the working group, just somebody well respected in the industry. The timetable was on page 143, so just at a concept level we would want to have the business case all prepared to go by about May next year. So over the next 4 months have the business case to go. The business case then unlocks us going out to the market and getting prices. So those prices would come back towards the end of 2016, it's about towards the end of October 2016. I think that's another opportunity for the council of the time to get engaged, because I envisage there'll be some pricing options in that tender process perhaps, and some decisions needed to be made based on cost. So look, I'm happy to answer any questions on the terms of reference. And
I have a question from Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Just in that indicative timeline, because of the election, as you're aware of, in October, there might need to be another space in there referring to a reappointment of council representatives and potentially an update to the new council, because we can't suppose what the new council will look like.
Yep. So we have anticipated that a little bit, Councillor Chessman. If you look at the February 2017 slot, we've put in there determination of a second waste working group required to take it to the next stage. And as I say, I think at that stage we should have pricing information and maybe another set of decisions to be made, but probably more importantly the rollout of the new contracts and some political guidance and help on doing that. So we have picked up on the notion of the elections and a new working group.
Okay, Councillor Mallett and then Councillor Forsyth.
Thank you, Rob. Thanks, Chris. Do the terms of reference presuppose some things? Does it presuppose that we will continue a recycling service? Does it presuppose we'll continue? And just, yeah, it may turn out that economically you're better off giving everyone tons of, 3 bags or 4 bags, and everything goes to the rubbish tip, to the landfill. I'm not saying that is the case, but are there any presuppositions in this?
Look, I don't think there is any presuppositions in it. That we had lots of discussions with council leading up to that, and there was some money put in for wheeling bins. The way I've seen that as a funding provision if the business case supports that. So I think the process that we're going through now will be to develop a business case. So a business case will come back to council for approval. So that will be the decision on terms of what you want to do.
So an idea like wheelie bins for organic waste is not
previously
not outlawed by this.
Previously, council had those discussions but hadn't gone there.
Yeah.
So the funding that's in our 10-year plan wouldn't allow us to do that.
Sorry,
so
wouldn't allow.
Wouldn't probably allow us to do that. And we had some discussions, and decided not to go there, but I guess once again, if the business case is complete, it would probably include all of the options and then zero in on a preferred option and come back to council for approval on that.
Thank you.
Councillor Forsyth.
No, it's fine, withdraw.
Okay. Any further questions, Councillor King?
I see decisions of the working group are made by consensus. You've got 2 elected members, and then you're not specifying numbers on the staff side. Sorry, page 142 under membership.
Yes, I see your point. I guess we've just been optimistic that we would have consensus around the table. At the end of the day, I think the decision making is with the councillors, and this is just about bringing back information to councillors to decide. So it's about developing a business case that would have all of the options in there. I could change that if required.
Probably recommendations in a sense, because nothing's really going to happen unless it's all finally ticked off by the full body. This is just to do
So
some work.
just remove the word consensus with and replace recommendations.
Recommendations will be made by consensus. So, and if there's a strong minority perspective, that can be picked up in the report.
Just, sorry to interrupt, wouldn't you say decisions made by majority? And then, I mean, of course, they're recommendations to the council, so the
Okay,
council
yeah,
can make,
yeah.
but consensus is a very unclear word.
And you can, and the reality is, through the chair, you can pick up if there's a clear minority perspective by anyone, that can just be picked up in the report. You know, an alternative view can be picked up. Yeah, that's right.
Councillor Gallagher.
Yeah, look, I want to. You know, the 2 elected members, obviously very good quality elected members from what I can see. But I would also like.
My decision was unanimous. Yeah,
Yes,
in
yes.
that regard.
I would actually like us to also put in, if he was available, Councillor McPherson, because of his very, very long history in this whole area of sustainability and his background. He may not be wanting to do this or available to do it, but I think it would be constructive and positive to put him in there, because I think he's got some good, obviously some good input, and also he has a degree of historical perspective, which I think would be useful to us, to be honest. And again, I mean, I think ultimately, while it says by majority, I'd be really surprised if in fact the reality wasn't consensus in terms of recommendations coming back to this committee.
So you wanting to change D?
Well, I would just, the terms of reference, I'd have
add
three elected members if no one else is busting at the gut, all right, and I'd add Councillor McPherson, all right, and I still think that's a reasonable staff elected member balance, and obviously allowing for the fact that from time to time there will be expertise coming in to assist that committee anyway, who won't be members of the committee but will be coming in. But I think that's quite a good, that'll be quite a nice balance, personally. I mean, Councillor McPherson may not be available, but I think, you know, I would just put a bracket subject to his availability.
All right. So we amend, your suggestion is to amend 7D,
Correct.
that it be 3 members? And if Councillor McPherson is not available, do we appoint
Well, it's
another
just,
person?
it would be just Councillor Forsyth, Councillor Gallagher and Councillor McPherson, bracket subject to his availability, because he's not here, so obviously he can't say yes or no.
Okay, so perhaps we need someone to move this. Would you like to move this with that change?
Yeah, I will move it. It looks
Recommendation.
a wee bit sort of unbashful, but I will move it. Unless the deputy.
Thank
yes,
you.
okay.
Deputy Mayor has seconded it.
I would like to go on this working group. I think we need a bit of balance in here.
Can I go with that?
I didn't realise rubbish would be so
There's
popular.
lots of money in rubbish.
Should it be a committee of the full council?
No, I don't think
Tried
so.
that.
I mean, to me, I personally, I have no problem with 4 elected members being there at all, because actually, folks, I mean,
We're looking
sorry,
at 5.
this is a
We're looking
biggie.
at
This is a
5.
very, and I think the more you get a cross-section of perspectives and challenging views, I think the rest of you will get a good product at the end of it. And this is probably, over the next 3-4 years, this is going to be one of the major things that we do. So I'm happy to amend my amendment with the leave of the seconder, just to say councillors Forsyth, Gallagher, King and McPherson, subject to his acceptance, all right, because we don't know if Mac's available.
And Mallet.
No, it's only Joe.
No, okay.
I was just going to say also, just if we're going to be getting precise, just be clear that terms of reference was changing the name from decisions made by majority.
Yeah.
Was that?
Yeah.
Because we haven't, it hasn't actually been moved or anything yet, has it?
And the reference, and I'm happy in the amendment, and that.
But I don't think there's nothing moved yet, is it?
No, we're working on putting a motion, forward, and the
So it's
motion
not
was.
an amendment yet.
The
There's
motion
nothing on the
was to,
table yet.
and the idea was to try and, if we could put it into one motion rather than an amendment, was to alter 7D to include four members, as specified, as well as a change to 7C.
And that 7C be
That
amended
changed.
to, and then just, all you do is just take that particular sentence.
That sentence under membership.
Yeah.
Under membership.
Yeah.
And the change was, if I recall, recommendations will be made by consensus
No, by
or
majority.
by
Majority of the working group.
And without being too pedantic here, because when we talk about decisions, all we're doing, as I understand it, Chris, is recommendations, is that not? Or have I?
It'll be,
Forward options.
I guess it'll be decisions in terms of arriving at a business case to bring back to council.
Decision by majority, that's fine. And if that helps, with the leave of the second, I'm happy to change that.
So the wording change then under membership is decisions, or it remains the same, decisions will be made by majority rather than consensus.
I do have one further question. So who's going to lead this group?
So
They could appoint their
They
own
could
chairman on the first
their
meeting.
own-
I was going to suggest that the group
Appoint their own
appoints the chair.
Yeah, I'd suggest that when the group gets together, they would have the power to appoint. I would suggest that when the group gets together, they have the power to appoint their own chair.
Okay.
Mr.
Are you able to put this up on the board so we know what we're actually voting?
Mr. Chair, I just
Sorry, Councillor.
Sorry, I just have a question.
Yep.
It's sounding more and more like it's going to turn into a subcommittee. I think we have, Democracy do have some operating guidelines for working groups that might help if it's circulated. Because there's no, on all the working groups that I've been on, there's no voting. It does just happen by consensus and agreement. And we need to be careful around starting to vote in a structure that's not under the formal structure by council where you can vote. So I think
Thank you.
Democracy can do that. At least send out the points of how they've operated. Yeah.
That's fine.
So are members of that working group happy that consensus be the word rather than decisions?
Sorry, Chair, I think you'll find that's in the guidelines.
Okay.
How they operate and all that's in the guidelines.
If it's a subcommittee, but we're not, it's a working group.
No, it's
A working group.
If it's notwithstanding,
I'd probably remove that sentence.
Yeah, look,
and then
I
there's
mean-
the guidelines, and that's how they operate. It's
Okay,
pretty
okay.
straightforward.
in the end, you've got a working group. That's the delegation that this council by majority have approved. And obviously it would be an absolute given. I understand that if it's a working group, then Councillor O'Leary's right. It operates as a working group within that delegation.
Within that, okay.
Yeah.
So we remove that sentence completely then?
Could I just check with the General Manager, if I may? Are you intending to have a session with the councillors as stakeholders in preparation for the business case, or are you taking the previous discussions had with councillors and the decisions made during the preparation of long-term plan as the position of the majority of councillors to inform the development of the business case with the assistance of the working group? because I just note in the timeline, and I'm not expecting that detail, of course, in this timeline at all, but I'm just checking with you.
I had anticipated would take as our starting point some of the decisions by councillors through the various negotiations and would present that to the working group. I'd also envisage that there'd be some touch points perhaps back with council and milestones of where we've got to. So
Right,
I
between
think to just arrive
November
at
and May.
Between
Yep,
November
that's
and
fine.
May.
Thank you. That's fine.
All right, so we have a motion up there with councillor Gallagher. We still need to change C, don't we? That we need to remove, we need the terms and reference and time frame attached to this report with the removal of the last sentence under membership, under the heading membership. Is that motion acceptable to you, councillor Gallagher?
Yes, because if that means that the default is it's a working group, and in terms of the delegation manual, that's how it conducts its decision-making process, then personally I'm happy with that. It has to conform with that delegation anyway.
Okay, so that's been moved by councillor Gallagher. Do we have a seconder, Deputy Mayor?
Question on the membership there. The group will consist of 2 elected members. Should we remove the word 2?
Where's that's in the that's in the terms of reference. Yeah.
So in the event that Councillor McPherson's unavailable, what is the intention, that someone else might be invited, or it would fall back to 3 councillors?
Put up to
Up
4.
to. We could use the word up to
4.
4.
Let's use up to 4.
Up to 4.
And I mean, to me, common sense would be that if Mac is not available and someone's really, keen, enthusiastic, passionate for this work, why would you not get them to replace Mac, really? And I'm sure there'd be a number of people that could be keen and passionate.
You got the wording for that, democracy? Up. From tone to up to 4. From you happy with that, councillor Gallagher? Happy with that, Deputy Mayor? Gordon, you happy with the changes? All right, so do we have discussion or debate on the recommendations on the motion? No, we don't. So those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, Chris. Report 15, which is the procurement format, and this is the report which was called for at the last finance meeting to indicate how procurement would be reported going forward, with the removal of the separate quarterly report that finance have received in the past. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What we are looking to do is to update our external facing website to have a specific page on procurement that will contain the information that was in the procurement report around contracts awarded, instruction for services awarded, P-card spend, and our overall spend on professional services. In addition to that, the web page will contain our e-tender portal, where all of our public tenders opportunities are advertised, and also a little bit about on the process for registering for viewing those. That's to enable suppliers a clearer view of what's currently available, what opportunities exist with council around public tenders. In addition to this, the 10-year monitoring report will contain a section on procurement that looks at some of our highest value contracts awarded over the last quarter, as well as any major procurement processes scheduled for commencement in the next quarter. The report will contain a link to the external web page where the more detailed information that was originally contained in the procurement report can be reviewed.
Thank you. Any questions of Scott? Sorry.
Thank you, Scott. One of the key issues was making this readily available to the public and the press. So Aaron can get his stuff from there as well. And you talk about external facing. Just give me some assurance that it'll be a user friendly, easy to get onto. I can find it here on our website, because a lot of things on our website aren't easy to get, and it's not sort of intuitive how you find your way around sometimes.
It will be all contained in one page, or web page with it. We're working through the detail on it, on how that will exactly look, Councillor Mallett. But the intention is to have it very easy to use and view information, and also having archives of previous information that's been put forward.
So just pre this meeting, I was talking to Paul, and they've got one up in Auckland apparently, and it's under a heading called probity, which is virtue or chastity or something. What does probity mean?
Something like that. Yeah, I mean, this is work that has not come out of just the meeting previously, where the question was raised around the report. This is work that has been ongoing for a while, which is planning for some of this information to be maintained in another way that makes it more available and more transparent to the public. One of the reasons that we're putting the link in the report is to make sure that people know that it exists, but also they can find it very easily. But by having everything come off one central page with the links from there, then they should be able to track it very easily to what they actually need as well.
Thank you.
And it will be part of the search functions that we have on the websites as well.
And Scott, you think you're confident this will reduce the time commitment by you and your staff and complexity and things like that?
It will certainly add no greater time commitment or complexity, and probably will reduce it.
Okay.
We're not writing a report to go over the top of it, so we're saving that time.
And it'll make these things a little bit skinnier once every quarter, won't it?
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you.
Any further questions of Scott? All right, we'll also move recommendation from management, which is item 6. Have a seconder. Debate. Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Is there any debate on this motion? There is none. Those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. And that is the end of the open part of the agenda. I will move that under section 48 that we resolve to go into public excluded. Have a seconder, Councillor Tooman. Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you.